Good morning, everyone. All of you see this picture. What is the picture indicating here? Here, three flower pots placed one within the other. Here you see three different sizes of flower pots arranged one within other. So in the same manner, we can see a structure now we are going to discuss, that is pharynx. So the musculature of the pharynx. See, the constrictor muscles means the musculature of the pharynx is arranged in the form of two layers, inner longitudinal, outer circular. So the outer circular layer is consists of three muscles: superior constrictor, middle constrictor, inferior constrictor. So these three constrictors, you can see here, this is a posterior aspect of the pharynx. So on the posterior aspect, one muscle is overlapped by the other muscle. So the overlapping you can see from below upwards. See the first picture, how the flower pots are surrounded, means just invested from below upwards. So one within the other. The same architecture of the muscle we can see in the pharynx. So let us see what are the things we are going to discuss. So what is the pharynx extent? So extent of the pharynx, where it is present, what is the vertebral levels. Then external relations. The relations are very, very important. So we'll see what are those relations. Then subdivisions of the pharynx. As it is a tubular structure, the interior means the internal aspect of the pharynx, how it is divided, and what are the important features which are very, very important. Then structure of the pharynx. So this is a tubular structure. So the tube means what are the different structures, means various tissues are arranged, how they are arranged. So the arrangement from outside to inside are the areolar coat. As already we discussed in GIT, what is the wall of the GIT? It is made up of four coats. From outside to inside, serosa or adventitia. So in case of serosa or adventitia, in place of pharynx, we can see areolar coat. So this is the loose areolar tissue which is surrounding the entire wall of the pharynx. Then beneath that, muscular coat. The muscular coat is arranged in the form of two layers, inner longitudinal and outer circular. It is different from that of rest of the GIT, because in GIT already we discussed in histology. So in GIT, what is the musculature? It is arranged in the form of inner circular and outer longitudinal layer. So here in the pharynx, the musculature is different, inner longitudinal and outer circular. So what is the function of these muscles? We'll see in the later slides. Then immediate beneath that muscular coat, there is a submucosa. So in the pharynx, the submucosa is not well defined, but it forms a facial layer. So what is that facial layer? We'll discuss later. Then innermost is the mucus. Mucus means this is a lining epithelium, and beneath immediately there is a connective tissue in the form of lamina propria. Then blood supply of the pharynx, lymphatic drainage, nerve supply, and what is the function of the pharynx? Then means for that we should know what are the stages of deglutition. Then various applied importance of the pharynx. Now coming to the extent of the pharynx. Here you see, we can see all these muscles. The most outer aspect, these are the constrictor muscles. As I told previously, what is that? The muscular layer of the pharynx is made up of inner longitudinal and outer circular. So these are the circular muscles. This is superior constrictor, this is middle constrictor, and this is inferior constrictor. So this is a muscular tube, and these muscles are surrounded by a fascia. So you can define the pharynx as a musculo-membranous tube which extends from the base of the skull. So base of the skull means from the base of the sphenoid and base of the occipital bone. This is the upper limitation for the pharynx. So base of the skull and down to the inferior border of the cricoid cartilage. So the cricoid cartilage lies at the level of 6th cervical vertebra. So what is the extent of the pharynx? From the base of the skull to the 6th cervical vertebra, where this musculomembranous tube continues with the esophagus. What are the relations? Here we should know the relations of the pharynx. Above, this is bony part, body of the sphenoid, and the sloping surface is formed by the basi-occiput. So basilar part of the occipital bone, and this is the under surface of the body of the sphenoid. So above, it is limited by a bony structure. So this is the base of the skull. Then below, at the level of a cricoid cartilage, what happened? It continues as the esophagus at the level of 6th cervical vertebrae. Then behind, you see, the behind is supported by the cervical vertebrae. From C1 to C6. So up to 6th cervical vertebrae, all these vertebrae are supporting the pharynx from behind. But these vertebrae are separated from the pharynx by means of a layer of fascia, and that is the prevertebral fascia, already discussed in deep cervical fascia. So the prevertebral fascia covering these vertebrae, and between the prevertebral fascia and these vertebrae, the muscles are present, prevertebral muscles, and either side of the vertebra, paravertebral muscles. So all these prevertebral and paravertebral muscles covered by prevertebral fascia, which lies on the posterior aspect of the pharynx. Then on each side, what are the relations of the pharynx? Here you can see on each side, means on the side of the pharynx, you can appreciate a bony structure, that is styloid process. And from this styloid process, 3 muscles takes origin and 2 ligaments are attached. So the styloid process, the 3 muscles which are taking origin and the 2 ligaments are attached to the styloid process, all together forming styloid apparatus. So this styloid apparatus lies on either side of the pharynx. So this is a lateral relation, means on either side of the pharynx you can see the styloid apparatus. And between the base of the skull and to the side of this pharynx, we can see a neurovascular bundle of the neck. So the neurovascular bundle of the neck is surrounded by the facial sheath. What is that facial sheath? Carotid sheath. So on the either side of the pharynx, the important relations, means lateral relations of the pharynx, you can tell the styloid apparatus and carotid sheath. Styloid apparatus means the styloid process gives origin to the 3 muscles: stylopharyngeus, styloglossus, and styloglossus, and stylopharyngeus, then stylohyoid. So these are the 3 muscles, and the 2 ligaments are stylomandibular ligament from the tip of the styloid process to the angle of the mandible, stylomandibular ligament, and from the tip of the styloid process to the hyoid bone, the stylohyoid ligament. So these are the structures are forming the styloid apparatus. Then what are the relations in front? See, the pharyngeal cavity, means pharynx, it is related anteriorly from above downwards, as the upper part, means the uppermost part of the pharynx is just a backward extension of the nasal cavity. So the uppermost part of the pharynx is important for the respiration. Means functionally it is related to the respiratory system. So that portion is known as nasopharynx. So in front, the uppermost part of the pharynx is related to the nasal cavity through this opening. See, in the middle there is a bone, that is vomer, means forming nasal septum. So either side of nasal septum, these are the 2 openings, which are known as posterior nasal openings, otherwise called choana. And both choana, means through choanae, the uppermost part of the nasal pharynx is communicating with the nasal cavity. So that part of pharynx is known as nasopharynx. Then in the middle, the pharynx is communicating in front with the oral cavity. Oral cavity through this opening. So this opening is nothing but oropharyngeal isthmus. Oropharyngeal isthmus. Through oropharyngeal isthmus, the part of pharynx is communicating with oral cavity, means the part of pharynx lies just behind the oral cavity, which is otherwise called oropharynx. Then beyond that, see, this is the upper border of the epiglottis. This is the upper border of the epiglottis. Below that level, what happened? The part of pharynx is communicating in front with the larynx through a laryngeal inlet. See, this is the laryngeal inlet. What are the boundaries? We'll see in the later slides. So this is the laryngeal inlet through which anteriorly the part of the pharynx is communicating with larynx. So beyond this upper border of the epiglottis, up to the lower border of the cricoid cartilage, this part of pharynx lies behind the larynx. So this portion of the pharynx is otherwise called laryngopharynx. Now these are the three communications anteriorly. Then what are the subdivisions of the pharynx? Here you see the picture. The pharynx, as anteriorly it is related to the nasal cavity, oral cavity, and here larynx. So the pharynx is divided into three parts. The upper portion is nasopharynx, middle is the oropharynx as it lies behind the oral cavity, and the part of pharynx lies behind the laryngeal cavity means laryngopharynx. Now coming to the individual parts of the divisions of the pharynx. Just you see here nasopharynx. So what are the boundaries for this nasopharynx? What is the boundary for the anterior? Means anterior wall. Here you see there is no any anterior wall because it is just a backward extension of the nasal cavity. So the anterior wall is deficient. So through which the nasopharynx communicates with the nasal cavity. So what is that opening called choana or posterior nares? Through posterior nares, the nasopharynx communicates with the nasal cavity. Then what is the roof and posterior wall? See, this is the roof and posterior wall. So there is no demarcation between the roof and posterior wall. So the roof is just continuous with the posterior wall. Then different various important features we can see in this roof and posterior wall. See, first nasopharyngeal tonsil. See, the entire pharynx is covered internally by the mucosa. Mucosa means the lining epithelium and adjacent connective tissue in the form of lamina propria. So immediately beneath this mucosa, there is an aggregation of the lymphoid tissue in the form of tonsil. So any lymphoid aggregation beneath the mucosa means mucosa associated lymphoid aggregation. We can define this kind of tissue as a MALT, means mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, is otherwise called tonsil. So what is the tonsil present here on the roof of the posterior part of the or posterior wall of the nasopharynx? Pharyngeal tonsil or nasopharyngeal tonsil. Nasopharyngeal tonsil. And this nasopharyngeal tonsil may be inflamed and it leads into a condition called adenoids. Because and this adenoids or adenoiditis, it is common in children because this pharyngeal tonsil is very well developed in the children, but later stages what happen in adults, it gradually atrophies. So usually this adenoid formation we can see in case of children. So this adenoid I will discuss later in clinical aspects. So what is this pharyngeal tonsil or nasopharyngeal tonsil? The lymphoid aggregation beneath the mucosa. So mucosa associated lymphoid tissue on the roof of the nasopharynx is otherwise called nasopharyngeal tonsil. Then pharyngeal bursa. So into this tonsil, sometimes the mucosa is extending backwards and it forms a diverticulum. Mucosal diverticulum. And it extends backwards into the pharyngeal tonsil. So this is also known as pharyngeal bursa. Then pharyngeal hypophysis. Sometimes a glandular tissue is present on the posterior wall and may extend onto the roof. So on the roof and posterior wall of the nasopharynx, we can see sometimes a glandular tissue, and that glandular tissue is histologically same as the anterior pituitary. Because what is this glandular tissue represents here? This is a backward extension into the nasopharynx of the Rathke's pouch. Because Rathke's pouch develops into pituitary. So here the part of Rathke's pouch extends backwards into this nasopharynx during development. So it may lead to a glandular development on the roof of the nasopharynx. So what is that gland is called? Pharyngeal hypophysis. Then coming to the floor. So what is the floor? Before going to the floor, what is the extent of the nasopharynx? The nasopharynx extends from this choana, means the communication between the nasal cavity and nasopharynx. So from this choana to this soft palate, means above the soft palate, the part of pharynx is otherwise called nasopharynx. So at the lower part, means at the floor, what happened? The nasopharynx is open. There is no any limitation. So the nasopharynx just below continues with the oropharynx through a space. What is this called? Pharyngeal isthmus. Then what is this pharyngeal isthmus? The pharyngeal isthmus is limited in front, means bounded in front by the soft palate and either side by the palatopharyngeal fold. This is a fold, palatopharyngeal fold, and behind it is limited by the mucosa elevation, which is by the means that mucosa elevation is already discussed in a soft palate. So what is that? Passavant ridge. Now what is the passavant ridge? The sum of the fibers of the palatopharyngeus encircles the pharyngeal wall. Then by the contraction of these muscles, mucosa is elevated into the pharynx. So which forms the passavant ridge here. So that passavant ridge is bounded the pharyngeal isthmus posteriorly. So what are the boundaries for the pharyngeal isthmus? In front by the soft palate, behind by the passavant ridge, and either side by the palatopharyngeal fold, the fold containing palatopharyngeus muscle. So this pharyngeal isthmus is closed during swallowing in order to prevent the food regurgitation from the oropharynx back to the nasopharynx. And what are the various features present on the lateral wall of the nasopharynx, which are very, very important? See, the lateral wall presents an opening. What is that opening is a pharyngeal opening of the auditory tube. So this is one end. What is the other end? So medially it is opens into the nasopharynx on the lateral wall of the nasopharynx. The other side means laterally it opens into the middle ear. So this is an air communicating channel between the nasopharynx and the middle ear. So what is the function of this auditory tube? It maintains the air pressure within the middle ear. Thereby, on either side of the tympanic membrane, always the air pressure is maintained by means of communication with this nasopharynx. So this is the opening. What is that? Auditory tube opening. Then tubal elevation. So what is the tubal elevation? Around this auditory tube, the entire wall is covered by mucous membrane. So the opening is covered here by the mucous membrane, and beneath that lamina propria, means mucosa means lining epithelium, and immediately beneath that lamina propria. So here this mucosa is forming a elevation over this opening, which is known as tubal elevation. And within this tubal elevation, we can find out a lymphoid aggregation, which is known as tubal tonsil. Here I have not mentioned here. So what is that? Tubal tonsil. So tubal tonsil overlies in this tubal elevation. Then what is tubal elevation? The upper and posterior end of the auditory tube is covered by this mucous membrane, and adjacent lamina propria forms an elevation. So what is this? Tubal elevation. Then pharyngeal recess. Just behind this tubal elevation, there is a depressed area. Means mucosa covered depression. You can see in the lateral wall of the nasopharynx a depression just behind the tubal elevation, which is known as pharyngeal recess or fossa of Rosenmuller. Then on the lateral wall, see, from this tubal elevation, two mucosal folds are extending down. So one fold extends downward to the lateral wall of the oropharynx, whereas one fold extending down to the soft palate. So what are these two folds? Salpingo-pharyngeal fold and salpingo-palatine fold. So this salpingo-palatine fold containing levator villi palatine. salpingopharyngeal fold containing salpingopharyngeus muscles. Then coming to the oropharynx. So what are the communications of the oropharynx? See, in front, the oropharynx is communicating with this oral cavity through a space. See, this is the opening and means communication between the oral cavity and oropharynx. This is otherwise called oropharyngeal isthmus. So oropharyngeal isthmus, above it is bounded by the soft palate. Below is bounded by the dorsal aspect of the posterior one-third of the tongue, and either side it is limited by the palatoglossal arch. The palatoglossal arch means it is a mucosal arch, and this arch otherwise called fold. This is because of the underlying muscle, because these palatoglossal arch containing palatoglossus muscle. So, either side, the oropharyngeal isthmus is limited or bounded by the palatoglossal arch, below by the dorsal surface of the posterior one-third of the tongue, and above by the soft palate. Then below, what happened below? So, below, the oropharynx is continuous with the laryngopharynx. Then, what is the important structure present in the lateral wall of the oropharynx? See, in the lateral wall of the oropharynx, there lies a depressed area that is nothing but palatine fossa. So, why there is a depressed area? See this picture. This is a palatine fossa. Fossa means is somewhat depressed. So, depression is there means either side must be an elevation. Here you see, in front of that depression there is an elevation that is produced by the palatoglossal arch, and that arch is formed by the mucosa. And beneath that there is a muscle that is palatoglossus. Whereas posterior to this fossa, one more arch or fold is there, that is palatopharyngeal arch containing the palatopharyngeus muscle. So in between there is a depression where it occupied by the palatine tonsil. So what is the lateral wall of the oropharynx? Where we can see a palatine fossa. Means tonsillar fossa for the palatine tonsil. Now coming to the laryngopharynx. So laryngopharynx extends from this upper border of the epiglottis. Here you can see this is upper border of the epiglottis. So beyond this level, upper border of the epiglottis, the rest of the pharynx is otherwise called laryngopharynx as it lies behind this larynx. Then what is the anterior wall of the laryngopharynx? See, the anterior wall has a communication with the larynx through an inlet. This is otherwise called laryngeal inlet. And yesterday only larynx is finished. So what is this laryngeal inlet? It is a communication. See, what are the boundaries for the laryngeal inlet? Above and in front. See, this is above and in front by the upper border of the epiglottis. This is a cartilage. Upper border of the epiglottis above as well as in front. Then on either side, see both sides, there is a fold. What is that fold? Is called aryepiglottic fold. Aryepiglottic means in the midline two arytenoid cartilages are there. So the tip is of the arytenoid is connected to the epiglottis by means of a fold, aryepiglottic fold, and beneath this fold there is a muscle, aryepiglotticus muscle. So either side this laryngeal inlet is bounded by the aryepiglottic folds, and behind and below by the in between two arytenoids, this is a mucosa, and beneath the mucosa means the two arytenoids are connected by means of a fold, interarytenoid fold, and that fold containing a muscle which is connecting two arytenoids. So interarytenoideus muscle. So interarytenoids muscle covered by a fold which is called as interarytenoid fold. So that limiting the below and behind boundary for this laryngeal inlet. Then what is the lateral wall? So on the lateral wall, there is again a depressed area. So on the lateral wall of the laryngopharynx, there is a depressed area on either side of this laryngeal inlet. So which is known as pyriform fossa. So what are the boundaries for the pyriformis fossa? So the pyriform fossa, medially it is limited by here the thyroid lamina. This is a this is the this fossa. And what are the two boundaries? Here this is a airy epiglottic fold on this medial side, and laterally this is the thyroid cartilage. So the lamina of the thyroid cartilage present on the lateral aspect. In between this there is a fossa which is known as pyriform fossa, and above it is limited by a glossoepiglottic fold. It is not clear in this picture. Okay, I will show in another picture. So this is the pyriform fossa, which is a depressed area on the lateral wall of the laryngopharynx. Now coming to the structure of the pharynx. So what is the wall? The wall of the pharynx is made up of these four coats. From outside to inside, areolar coat, muscular coat, submucosa and mucosa. So what is this areolar coat? See, outermost layer wall is made up of areolar coat. This areolar coat is otherwise called buccopharyngeal fascia. See, the entire pharynx is covered by loose areolar tissue. Or if you trace this buccopharyngeal fascia, means areolar coat upwards towards the upper part, what happened? This areolar coat extends onto the buccinator muscle. So where it is converted into buccopharyngeal fascia. So the fascia covering the buccinator and continues with the fascia covering the pharynx. So buccopharyngeal fascia. Actually, if it is a well-defined fascia, what happened? Just you think about that. If there is a well-defined fascia covering this entire pharynx, so there is a restriction of the expansion of this pharynx. So what happened here? This areolar coat, just a loose areolar tissue, just covering as a thin layer. But as it approaches onto the buccinator, it is thickened where it forms the buccopharyngeal fascia. So above it is attached to this base of the skull, whereas below it extends up to the cricoid cartilage. The level of cricoid cartilage means up to the esophagus. Then what are the muscles of the pharynx? Immediately beneath the buccopharyngeal fascia, we can identify the muscles of the pharynx, means musculature of the pharynx. The outer circular layer. You see, this is posterior aspect of the pharynx. Along the midline, you can identify a fibrous tissue exactly present in the midline. So, which is known as median fibrous raphe. So, where all these constrictors of the pharynx are inserted. So, it forms a continuous midline fibrous raphe, extends up to this base of the skull, where at the base of the skull is attached to the tubercle. So this is a pharyngeal tubercle, which is present on the basilar part of the occipital bone. So you must identify on the bone. So what is a pharyngeal tubercle? It is present on the undersurface of the basilar part of occipital bone. So this is the midline structure, and if you trace this median fibrous raphe extends up to the esophagus, means beyond this cricoid cartilage there is no extension of this pharyngeal constrictor. Even it is not extending on to the lowest part of the inferior constrictor. I will discuss later what is that. So this is a fibrous raphe. See here, GIT, entire GIT already it is finished. So in histology, the musculature is inner circular, outer longitudinal GIT. But here in the upper part, means in pharynx, even in the upper 2/3 of the esophagus, the musculature is striated muscle, whereas rest of the GIT is smooth muscle. And arrangement also inner circular, outer longitudinal. Here, inner longitudinal, outer circular layer in the pharynx. Coming to the inner longitudinal muscles. See, the three paired muscles are there: salpingopharyngeus, palatopharyngeus, stylopharyngeus. Coming to the salpingopharyngeus. Salpingo means it is related to the auditory tube. Here, this is a tubal elevation. overline the opening of auditory tube. From the lower part of the tubal elevation, one fold extends downwards. So fold means mucosal fold. So why there is mucosal fold? Because the underlying muscle. What is that muscle is called salpingopharyngeus muscle. So this salpingopharyngeus muscle, once it takes origin from the lower end of the tubal elevation, it descends to the lateral wall of the pharynx, and most of the fibers are joins with the other two longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. Then second muscle is palatopharyngeus. Palatopharyngeus, it takes origin, it is discussed in soft palate. So palatopharyngeus takes origin from the upper surface of the palatine aponeurosis by means of two fasciculi. Here you see the two fasciculi, anterior and posterior. So these two fasciculi join to form a single, and it forms a downward extension, then joins with the salpingopharyngeus. And some of the fibers are descending down to the lateral wall of the pharynx. Some fibers are arching backwards and continues on the posterior wall of the pharynx with the opposite side. So where the uppermost fibers of this palatopharyngeus forming a constrictor exactly at the level of pharyngeal isthmus. So if these part of the palatopharyngeus contracts, what happened? It closes the pharyngeal isthmus. So that's why it acts as a pharyngeal constrictor. Then stylopharyngeus. Stylopharyngeus, name itself indicates it takes origin from the styloid process. So from the styloid process, it takes origin and descends, and to reach the pharynx, it passes through a gap between the two constrictors, superior and middle constrictor. So gap between the superior and middle constrictor, it appears and enters the pharyngeal wall. So within the pharyngeal wall, what happened? It joins with the other two longitudinal muscles, where it forms a conjoint tendon. So what is a conjoint tendon? It is formed by all the three longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. So most of these tendinous fibers are inserted to the posterior border of the lamina of the thyroid cartilage. That is the most important insertion. So as it is inserted to the lamina of the thyroid cartilage, by contraction of this conjoint tendon, it can elevate the larynx during swallowing. Then coming to the constrictor muscles. Okay, these are the constrictor muscles. We'll see one by one. So these circular muscles, how they are taking origin. We see here the superior constrictor origin. This is middle constrictor, and this is inferior constrictor. Now coming to what is the origin of the superior constrictor. Identify here, this is the posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate. And this is the bony projection, which is known as pterygoid hamulus. So continuous origin from the lower part of the posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate, then pterygoid hamulus, and this is the pterygomandibular raphe. So the pterygomandibular raphe extends from the pterygoid hamulus to the mandible just behind the third molar tooth. So what is this pterygomandibular raphe? It is a fibrous raphe extending from the pterygoid hamulus. And what is pterygoid hamulus? It is the lower part of the posterior border of the medial pterygoid forms a hook-like projection, which is known as pterygoid hamulus. So from this pterygoid hamulus, fibrous raphe extend from this to the mandible just behind the third molar tooth. So this pterygomandibular raphe gives origin. So here you see pterygomandibular raphe gives origin in front to the buccinator muscle, whereas behind to the superior constrictor muscle. So a continuous origin of the superior constrictor extending from the lower part of the posterior border of the medial pterygoid, then pterygoid hamulus, then pterygomandibular raphe. This is the origin of the superior constrictor. Then what is the middle constrictor? Yes, see, this is a styloid process. From the styloid process to the hyoid bone, stylohyoid ligament. So the lower part of the stylohyoid ligament, and this cornua of the hyoid is lesser cornua, then greater cornua of the hyoid. So this is the origin of the middle constrictor muscle. stylohyoid, lesser and greater corner of the hyoid bone. This is the origin of the middle constrictor. Now, what is the origin of inferior constrictor? The inferior constrictor has two parts, the thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus. Means part of muscle takes origin from the thyroid cartilage. This is an oblique line present on the external surface of the thyroid cartilage, which is known as oblique line. So this oblique line gives origin to the thyropharyngeus part of the inferior constrictor. Then cricopharyngeus part, it takes origin from the cricoid cartilage, the anterior lamina of the cricoid cartilage. So this is about the origin of the three constrictor muscles. So anteriorly they are not complete, but posteriorly they are complete. You see here, anteriorly these are not complete, but posteriorly, so how they are inserting, we'll see. What is the insertion of the superior constrictor? See, uppermost fibers are arching backwards and upwards, and these fibers are going to insert to the pharyngeal tubercle. In the previous slide, we have seen here, this is a pharyngeal tubercle. So the uppermost fiber, you see how they are arching backwards and upwards and going to insert this pharyngeal tubercle. So this is the uppermost fibers, and the medial fibers are somewhat horizontal going to the median raphe. Then these most lower fibers are inserted to the median raphe, and these fibers extend as far as below up to the level of the vocal cords or vocal folds. Then coming to the middle constrictor, as it takes origin from this hyoid, goes upwards, means sloping upwards and backwards, and the uppermost fibers are going to the pharyngeal tubercle. Then the lower fibers are arching backwards and going to median raphe, reaches the level of the vocal folds. Now coming to the inferior constrictor. Here inferior constrictor presents two parts. The part which takes origin from the thyroid lamina, which is known as thyropharyngeus. So this thyropharyngeus going backwards and going to insert along the median raphe, fibrous raphe. Whereas cricopharyngeus, what happened? These fibers are completely horizontal. They are not arching backwards, upwards. They are just horizontally placed, and at the median plane, what happened? Continuous with the opposite fibers. So there is no any interrupting median raphe. Here you can see. Here you see. This is a inferior constrictor muscle. The part of muscle, you see, there is no any median raphe in the middle. But this is a thyropharyngeus muscle. So the cricopharyngeus, how it appears like a constrictor. So at any level, means anywhere, anytime, this inferior part of the inferior constrictor, nothing but cricopharyngeus, is act as a constrictor. So what happened? It is always in constrictor. Unless the foot bolus appears at this level. So what happened? Once the foot is appeared here, it is relaxed by the contraction of the thyropharyngeus. We'll discuss in the deglutition. So what is this? Cricopharyngeus act as a constrictor. So this is the insertion of all the three constrictor muscles. Now the gaps are laid there between the adjacent constrictor muscles. As I told, see, this is the superior border of the superior constrictor. In the previous slide you see this is the superior border. So there is a gap between the base of the skull and upper border of the superior constrictor. This gap is known as sinus of Morgagni. Sinus of Morgagni. So through this sinus of Morgagni, what are the structures that are passing? So the important structure is auditory tube. It passes through this gap and opens into the nasopharynx. Then a muscle which passes through this gap, that is tensor villi palatini muscle. Then, so this is very important here. So what is this? Auditory tube and tensor villi palatini, and of course levator villi palatini. These are the structures are passing, and the artery is also passing here. The palatine branch of the ascending pharyngeal artery and ascending palatine artery is also passing through this space. So what is this space? Space of the Morgagni. Then gap between the superior constrictor and middle constrictor. So this is superior constrictor and this is middle constrictor. So what are the structures are passing through this gap? An important muscle, what is the stylopharyngeus muscle? The stylopharyngeus muscle passes through this gap and appears in the pharyngeal wall where it joins with the other two longitudinal muscles to form the conjoint tendon. So this is an important structure passing through the gap between the superior and middle constrictor muscle. And the nerve which passes through this gap, this is glossopharyngeal nerve. So here this glossopharyngeal nerve provides a branch to this stylopharyngeus. Then the gap between middle and inferior constrictor muscles. See, between middle and inferior constrictors, what are the structures are passing? So this is thyroid lamina. So thyropharyngeus muscle. Here this is the middle constrictor. So between middle and inferior constrictor, this is a space where it is covered by between this thyroid lamina to the hyoid bone, one membrane extending, thyrohyoid membrane. See, this is a membrane. What is this? Thyrohyoid membrane. This thyrohyoid membrane is pierced by the two important structures. One is vessel, that is superior laryngeal vessel, and a nerve is superior laryngeal nerve, gives off internal laryngeal nerve. So that internal laryngeal nerve along with this superior laryngeal artery and piercing this thyrohyoid membrane and enters the pharynx. So that is the gap between the middle and inferior constrictor. Then actually it's not gap, below the inferior constrictor. So the groove between the trachea and esophagus. So what is the tracheo-esophageal groove? It is occupied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve and inferior laryngeal vessels. So these two structures are related to the gap, means a space means between trachea and esophagus. So in the tracheo-esophageal groove, where it occupied by these two important structures. Then coming to the inferior constrictor. Here, what I told, inferior constrictor, it is made up of two parts. The part which takes origin from the thyroid cartilage, thyropharyngeus, and beyond that is the cricopharyngeus. So in between these two parts, the pharyngeal wall is weak. Why? What is the reason? The pharyngeal wall is weak between this thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus. Why? Because all these three constrictors as reinforced up to this junction. Means up to this level within the lateral wall of the pharynx, means the wall of the pharynx is made up of all the three constrictors. But below that level, the wall of the pharynx is formed by only by these cricopharyngeus. There is no other constrictor muscle here. It is formed only by the cricopharyngeus. So the weakest area of the pharynx means the junction between the thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus. So this weakest part is known as dehiscence of Killian. Dehiscence of Killian. So what is the importance? So what happened here? So during, actually what is the function of these constrictors? During deglutition, once the food enters into the pharynx, the contraction of the muscle is involuntary, means reflexly the muscles will be contracted. First, longitudinal muscles are contracted, thereby what happened? The pharynx is shortens and widens and is followed by the contraction of the constrictor muscles. So all these three constrictor muscles contracts, thereby peristaltic wave is produced gradually downwards. So this peristalsis extends up to the thyropharyngeus. So here what happened? The thyropharyngeus acts as a propulsive contraction. The contraction of the thyropharyngeus is propulsive, whereas the contraction of the cricopharyngeus is constriction. So what happened here? During food passage, means during swallowing, thyropharyngeus is contracted, whereas cricopharyngeus is relaxed. Thereby what happened? Food bolus is extends down to the esophagus. So this is normal phenomena during the swallowing. So here, if there is any incoordination, means just to imagine both thyropharynges and cricopharynges, both are contracted. What happened? There is a intrapharyngeal pressure raises. So due to this reason, what happened? The mucosa along with this food is extended along this weakest area of the pharynx, that is dehiscence of Killian. What is the weakest area? Between the thyropharynges and cricopharynges. So due to this increased intrapharyngeal pressure, the mucosa is extend backwards, means it is extending through this space into the outside. So which is known as pharyngeal diverticulum. So the one more cause is there for this. What happened? The neuromuscular incoordination. If there is any neuromuscular incoordination, so what happened? Thyropharyngeus contracts as well as cricopharyngeus also contracts. So intrapharyngeal pressure is raises. So thereby the formation of this diverticulum, which is known as Jenker's diverticulum. And this Jenker's diverticulum may grow down and it may compress the esophagus. So it leads to a condition called dysphagia, means it is a difficulty in the swallowing. Then after muscle, what is that layer? Submucosa. So the submucosa is not well defined, but the fibers are mostly elastic fibers. So what happened? Here it forms the pharyngobasilar fascia. Means, see outside the muscles, what is the fascia is there? Buccopharyngeal fascia. Inside the muscles, the submucosa is forming a layer. So that layer is known as the pharyngobasilar fascia. Why it is known as pharyngobasilar fascia? The entire wall is covered by, means the muscles are covered by this fascia, so pharyngeal fascia. Then this pharyngeal fascia further extends upwards to the base of the skull. So pharyngobasilar. Here basilar means base of the skull. So this pharyngobasilar fascia mainly completing or fills the space between the superior constrictor and base of the skull. So what is the space here between the superior constrictor and base of the skull? The space of Morgagni. So this space of Morgagni is covered by or filled by this pharyngobasilar fascia. It is just an extension of the submucosa of the pharyngeal wall. So here it is pierced by the auditory tube to enter the interior of the nasopharynx. So it is also known as pharyngeal aponeurosis. So what is the pharyngeal fascia? As I told just now. So there is a thick pharyngobasilar fascia inside and thin buccopharyngeal fascia outside. So these two fascia reinforces the pharyngeal wall. But keep it in your mind, these fascia are not restricting the pharyngeal musculature. If they are restricting, means if they are very well defined fascia, so what happened? It leads to pharyngeal, means the musculature is not expand. Wall of the pharynx is not expanded. Now coming to the mucosa of the pharynx. So what is the mucosa of the pharynx? As you know, the mucosa means the lining epithelium, and followed by, means immediately beneath that must be a connective tissue in the form of lamina propria. So the entire wall of the pharynx lined by mucosa. So here the mucosa is differ, means most of the pharynx, all the three parts, naso, laryngo, means most of the pharynx is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, as it is always means related to the wearing and tearing. So it should be lined by the stratified epithelium, means protective epithelium. But the uppermost part, means the nasopharynx, it is lined by respiratory epithelium, as it is functionally related to the respiratory system. So stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, then beneath that lamina propria, and here see muscularis mucosa is absent. There is no muscularis mucosa. Then what is the arterial supply of the pharynx? The arteries are derived from the external carotid artery. So these are mainly from the external carotid artery. The first branch of the external carotid is the ascending pharyngeal artery that provides an important artery to the pharynx. Then ascending palatine artery and tonsillar artery, where it is an important artery to the tonsil. So they are also supplying the pharynx. Then maxillary artery, lingual artery. They are also providing some branches to the pharynx. So main branches, these are derived from the external carotid artery. Then what is the venous drainage? So the veins are forming plexus on the wall of the pharynx, and these plexus are superiorly drains into one more plexus, which is formed just at the root of the pterygoid process, which are known as pterygoid venous plexus. So above, pharyngeal venous plexus drains into pterygoid venous plexus, whereas in front and below, they drains into the facial vein, then internal jugular vein. Now, what is the lymphatic drainage? The lymphatics mostly drains on either side of pharynx, parapharyngeal or paratracheal lymph nodes, and other deep cervical lymph nodes in relation to the internal jugular vein. So, deep cervical nodes drains the pharynx. Nerve supply. So, nerve supply of the pharynx, motor and sensory. So, what is motor? The musculature of the pharynx is supplied by the motor nerves. So, these motor nerves are all the muscles of the palate supplied by the pharyngeal plexus, as well as all the muscles of the pharynx are supplied by the pharyngeal plexus. But see, only one muscle of the palate, it is supplied by the mandibular nerve, that is tensor villi palatine. Similarly, all the muscles of pharynx are supplied by this pharyngeal plexus except the stylopharyngeus, which is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. And in addition, the recurrent laryngeal and external laryngeal nerves supplying the cricopharyngeus muscle. The cricopharyngeus, in addition to this pharyngeal plexus, also supplied by the recurrent laryngeal nerve and external laryngeal nerve, whereas stylopharyngeus is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. But rest all the muscles are supplied by the pharyngeal plexus. Then what is the sensory supply? So nasopharynx is supplied by the pharyngeal branch of maxillary nerve, whereas oropharynx is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. It is not directly by this pharyngeal plexus. It is the glossopharyngeal nerve supplying the oropharynx. Then laryngopharynx is supplied by the internal laryngeal nerve. See here, what is this pharyngeal plexus? So pharyngeal plexus are formed by the three roots mainly. One is motor root. The motor root means it is derived from the vagus nerve. The pharyngeal branch of the vagus nerve, actually this pharyngeal branch of vagus nerve carries the fibers of the cranial part of accessory nerve. So what is the nerve supply? Motor nerve supply to the palate or pharynx, we should tell. This is the cranial part of the accessory nerve. But it is not directly supplied because the fibers of cranial accessory joins with the vagus nerve. So these branches means this cranial part of accessory nerve passing along the pharyngeal branches of the vagus nerve. So pharyngeal branch of vagus nerve is motor in nature, and those fibers are derived from the cranial part of accessory nerve and takes origin from a nucleus present in the medulla, which is nucleus ambiguus. This is the source, right? Then other branch is the sensory. What is that? A pharyngeal branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve. So here it is sensory branch. Then pharyngeal branch is from the superior cervical ganglion, means a sympathetic fibers. You see, from the superior cervical ganglion, a pharyngeal branch extending where it joins with the other two pharyngeal branches derived from the vagus and glossopharyngeal. So these three main branches forming a plexus. They are forming a plexus. And what is the location of this plexus? On the wall of the pharynx, means the buccopharyngeal fascia, and mostly they are present on the middle constrictor, means on the surface of the pharynx, means where middle constrictor, buccopharyngeal fascia, we can see the formation of the pharyngeal plexus. So out of these three, pharyngeal branch of vagus means cranial part of accessory supplying muscles. Then glossopharyngeal supplying the sensory innervation to the mucosa, whereas pharyngeal branches from superior cervical ganglion are vasomotor. They are supplying the blood vessels of the pharynx. Then here you see this is a ganglia present in the fossa. This is pterygopalatine fossa. So the pterygopalatine fossa containing a ganglion which is suspended by a nerve. This is maxillary nerve by two roots. So the maxillary nerve gives off one branch here. So that passes without interruption and it gives a branch. This is pharyngeal branch supplying the nasopharynx. So the nasopharynx is supplied by the pharyngeal branch from the pterygopalatine ganglion, and in turn this branch coming from the maxillary. Then what are the functions of the pharynx? So the function as it is related to the nasal cavity and oral cavity. So it is common for both the food and air passages. Then the other important function. So what is the function? The movement of the pharynx is important in the swallowing. So usually the swallowing is occurred in 3 stages. The first stage is present in occur in the oral cavity. Second stage in the pharynx. Third stage in the esophagus. So what happened during the first stage? So once the food is accumulated in the oral cavity, means after chewing, what happened? It forms a bolus, and that bolus is accumulated between the tongue and hard palate. So the food is imprisoned between the tongue, dorsal surface of the tongue, and hard palate. So this bolus, how it appears in the pharynx? So here, by means of 2 important muscles. The first important muscle is a mylohyoid. So by the contraction of the mylohyoid, what happened? This food is imprisoned here. Whatever imprisoned between the tongue and the hard palate, it is moving backwards through this oropharyngeal isthmus and enters into the oropharynx. So this is the first stage and is completely voluntary. Then once the food appears in the oropharynx, it is under control of, means it is involuntary. It is not under voluntary control. So the second stage of deglutition is involuntary, means reflexly the pharynx is contracted and the food is stage wise it is going downwards towards the esophagus. So how it occurs? So once bolus appears in this oropharynx, it should not be regurgitated back to the oral cavity or should not be regurgitated above, means into the nasopharynx. So how it occurs? So immediately once bolus appears in the pharynx, the longitudinal muscles of the pharynx as well as the elevators of the soft palate are contracted. So by means of elevation of the soft palate, by means of 2 muscles, what is that? First, levator villi palatini. So the levator villi palatini contracts to elevate the soft palate, and the tensor villi palatini contracts to tense, means stretch the soft palate. And the third immediate muscle, that is a palatopharyngeus, but not entire palatopharyngeus, the uppermost fibers, they are constricting the isthmus. What is this isthmus? Pharyngeal isthmus. So by the elevation of the soft palate and contraction of the palatopharyngeus, what happened? The pharyngeal isthmus is closed. So immediately there is no regurgitation back to the nasopharynx. Then how this oropharyngeal isthmus is closed? So this oropharyngeal isthmus is closed by the muscle is styloglossus first, then the second muscle is palatoglossus muscle. So by the contraction of this palatoglossus and styloglossus, what happened? The root of the tongue extends upwards, means it is approximating the soft palate, thereby the oropharyngeal isthmus is closed. Then what happened in case of the larynx? How it is closed? Means the food extends down to the laryngopharynx. From oropharynx, it should be go down to the laryngopharynx. So how it occurs? Here what happened? Immediately, reflexly, the other 2 longitudinal muscles, stylopharyngeus and salpingopharyngeus, elevates the larynx because the conjoint tendon derived from all the 3 longitudinal muscles of pharynx inserted to the thyroid cartilage. So they elevate the thyroid cartilage, and here you see here. This is a laryngeal inlet. So during second stage of swallowing, how this laryngeal inlet is closed? As I told, the lateral aspect of the inlet is bounded by a fold, aryepiglottic fold. And this aryepiglottic fold containing aryepiglotticus muscle. So as it contracts, what happened? These two folds are approximated each other, and thereby this the thyroid cartilage is elevated, so that what happened? The epiglottis is elevated and it extends on to the dorsum of the tongue. So thereby what happened? Laryngeal inlet is closed, and so all the ways are closed. Here you see. So once food enters here, this pharyngeal isthmus is closed, oropharyngeal isthmus is closed, and laryngeal inlet also closed. So there should be, means what is the choice for the food bolus? It should go down into the laryngopharynx. So in this way, the bolus is extends into the laryngopharynx. And once it appears in the laryngopharynx, what happens in the third stage? The thyropharyngeus is contracts, whereas cricopharyngeus is relaxes. So by means of this action, the food bolus extends into the esophagus. So from here, the third stage of deglutition means from the esophagus, it extends down to the stomach. Then what are the important blood aspects? See, this is tonsillitis. Tonsillitis means on the lateral wall of the oropharynx, there is a tonsil. So if there is any inflammation, so tonsillitis means it's an inflammation of the palatine tonsil. Then quinsy, it is a peritonsillar abscess. See, this is uvula and palatoglossal arch. So outside this tonsillar fossa, this is a peritonsillar abscess. It is otherwise called quinsy. Then pharyngitis, the posterior wall, the mucosa of the pharynx is inflamed. It is known as pharyngitis. Then adenoids, already I discussed. The pharyngeal tonsil may be inflamed. So what is that condition called? Adenoids. And nasopharynx usually is a common site for the carcinoma. So what is that? Fossa of Rosen-Miller. Then infection of nasopharynx can easily spread into the middle ear. So what is the source? This is the auditory tube. Then this is a retropharyngeal abscess. As I told, what is the space just behind the pharynx? Retropharyngeal space occupies between this vertebra and prevertebral fascia. So there is a retropharyngeal abscess. So to sum up, what is this pharynx? What are the different parts? Means how the interior is divided into three parts. Then what is the muscle? Important is the musculature. So what is the function of the musculature? You should know. Thank you.